Hi there, welcome to the archives. So I finally got out of bed today. I have to go out. Today is the International Day of Solidarity with Palestinians. So I hope we're all reflecting on the last 2 years, almost a century actually. I saw what I wanted to say really quickly is if let's say you are in competition, you're competing, you are in a debate with somebody, right? If you realize that your opponent is already going to beat you and you therefore sabotage your opponent, um, and or you take them out of the competition so you don't even have to face them, so then you don't have to lose to them. If you replace them with the weaker opponent so you know you can win, I think you know that you've already lost, right? And just because you replaced your opponent with someone quote unquote weaker who you know that you can beat for sure doesn't mean you actually won. Um, that's something I've been thinking about the last few days. And I'm speaking specifically to an event. Um, but that's all I'll say is, and we see that over and over in history, right? Where somebody, let's say there's somebody thinks that they are the more superior, the more dominant, and then they see their opponent and they're like, "Oh, actually, you can keep up. You can not only can you keep up, but I think you can beat me." And so therefore, I'm going to sabotage you. I'm going to take you out of the game. I'm going to get a head start on you. I'm going to replace you with somebody else who we can be. Those are all. And then when they win, they're like, "Oh, we won." Well, that's because you cheated, right? You cheated. You rigged the game. You sabotaged it. It wasn't a fair win. It wasn't a fair win. So if you can still enjoy the victory, congratulations on the victory, but it didn't come fair. I saw, speaking of sabotage, I saw recently that somebody else was another young man that was found hanging from a tree. So I saw a couple of posts. I was just like, your reminder that like black people don't die by suicide by hanging themselves from trees. And I took notes recently on Ida B. Wells from, one second. All right, I'm back. Remember how I introduced Paula Giddings a while back? When and where I enter, the impacts of black women on race and sex in America. So I revisited the section on Ida B. Wells, and I thought I would share that today. There's a few more videos I have to do coming up. So I'm gonna do Ida B. Wells just because lynching has come up recently in America. People are just don't forget that lynching is not something that's of the past, right? Lynching where white people hang in this context, black people, black men, black bodies, black women, and kids were also lynched as well too, but they hang them from trees with a noose and leave them to die. In the past, and sometimes in other cases, they are burned. Um, and Ida B. Wells did a lot of anti-lynching work. So I'm going to share her story today. I'll be back later on another day to do Sorkatani. I have ready to go. Herodias, I have ready to go. And Boudica, I'm going to do again. So I've also been working on the warriors, queens, and intellectuals, and I'll come back to do those in future episodes. I also got a book on Njinga. I used to pronounce it Nzinga. One second. So like I said, I've been thinking about what to do because we're almost at the end of the year, and I will be doing less and less in December. So I'm thinking about what I want to share in the new year. I have, speaking of history, I'm going to continue history. I think I really enjoy learning about women in history, so I think I'm going to continue that as well too, going into the new year. I took this book up from the library, Njinga of Angola, Africa's Warrior Queen. I also have to, something that came up in mind was one of my critiques of the Warriors, Queens, and Intellectuals series is that they don't talk about a lot of sub-Saharan African women. And I think that's because a lot of documented history on us comes after the 1400s. I have to look to see who was before the 1400s, but Njinga, for instance, was after the 1400s, right? This is the 17th century, so we're talking 1500. Uh, 16, sorry, so 1625, all of them. So I'll get back to talk about Nzinga. There's also they have a film of her on Amazon Prime, I believe. I think Jada Pickett Smith was part of the team that did Nzinga's story. And then I also got right now I have from the library Goddesses, 50 Goddesses, Spirits, and Saints, and other female figures who have shaped belief. So I'm really feeling learning about, like I said, different female, feminine, women identified folks in history. So this was the goddesses. So there's 50 of them. I've gone through a couple. I'm taking notes, but I don't know if I'll share all of them. But the ones that I feel to share, I'll probably will share those as well too. So it's gonna be, just give me some time because there's a lot going on right now. So Ida B. Wells. Let's do Ida B. Wells. So Ida B. Wells, excuse me, is the daughter of former enslaved parents. Her father was the son of a former master. Um, yeah, so her father's father was a slave master. He was a race man who failed his daughter with black pride. So basically, he was really a lot of black pride, black power. He taught her and raised her to be proud of her blackness and who and what she is. Um, she's originally from Memphis, Tennessee, and she was the firstborn eldest daughter, Ida B. Wells. So in 1878, the yellow fever broke out in the United States, and at that time, both of her parents got yellow fever within 48 hours of each other. Um, they lost their 9-month-old baby. They lost their 9-month-old baby, and one of her, Ida B. Wells' sister, became disabled from the yellow fever. There were six of them, so she was the eldest of six. And at 16, she stepped up to help take care of her family. So she dropped out of school, she lied about her age, and she became a teacher so she can bring in some income. And she did this for 2 years, riding a mule back and forth. Each week, she would go teach in the rural school. On the weekends, she would return home to take care of her family. Um, and as she got older, she got a license to teach elementary school, right? During her summer break, she got her teaching training courses at Fisk University. This was in the 1880s. Okay, so in 1884, a train conductor kicked her out for of her seat in first class. So she took a train. She was in first class. She bought her ticket in first class. She could afford it, and the conductor kicked her out because he thought that she shouldn't be there. But it was within her right to be there because she had bought the ticket to be there. So the man kicked her off the train. He tried to. She bit him, and then she got dragged out of the train by four men. And so that's one story that she's known for. She ends up suing the railroad company, right? And at first, she got a black lawyer to defend her. And after a while, she realized that the lawyer had been bought out and was sabotaging her on purpose, right? So the lawyer was bought up by the authorities, and this black lawyer was intentionally trying to sabotage her case. So she got rid of that lawyer. She got a white lawyer to defend her, and she was able to win her case, right? The railroad company appealed and her victory because her victory would have set a new precedence as the first Black American to challenge the 1883 nullification of the Civil Rights Bill, which had passed during Reconstruction. So the Tennessee Supreme Court understood this precedent and was like, no, we can't set this precedent, reverse it. So they reversed the lower court's order, and so she lost. Even though she had won, the railroad company appealed it, the Supreme Court reversed it, and she lost. This radicalized her, right? She was devastated, and she started writing for a living, right? Because also at the time she lost her job. Um, we'll get to that, but she was a brilliant writer. She was elected as the first woman secretary of the National Afro American Press Association, and during this time, she wrote a expose on the Memphis school system. And remember, she was a teacher, right? She was an elementary school teacher. So when she started writing, she wrote this expose, and the school system fired her, right? Somebody recently was talking about how you can't bite the hand that feeds you, and this idea that like if you bite the hand that feeds you, well, you deserve to be cut off. I mean, if you realize that the hand is feeding you poison, please bite it, right? You can't just keep getting fed poison that's gonna kill you just because it's feeding you. Starve yourself. Them starving you is actually a win for you because you're no longer being fed poison. So that's what happened here. She bit the hand that fed her, right? Supposedly. And so she got fired. That actually was a good thing for her because she was able to do writing full time. So she was able to travel to do her writing. She was known as the princess of the press. Like she was a phenomenal. That was what she became famous for, her journalism. And within 9 months of getting fired, she was able to build up her subscriptions. They went from 1,500 to 3,500. So within a year, she was able to build up her following. She was earning the same income that she had been earning when she was a teacher. So within 1 year, she was able to make her income back just writing, right? So it was just like an F you to the school system. You thought you were going to fire me for exposing you. Well, guess what? I found my own lane. I created my own lane. I am now known as a princess of the press, and actually, I'm earning better than what you were paying me. And so, then three men were lynched. Three men from her hometown were lynched. She knew them. She knew one of them, I believe. Thomas Moss, Calvin McDowell, and Henry Stewart. They were lynched on March 9th of 1892. And just to go back a little bit earlier, as early as 1890, there were black codes, right? The United States government, they realized, oh my God, these black people are doing really well, right? These black people are doing really well. They're building businesses, they're owning property, they are thriving, right? They are being elected into legislature. We have to sabotage them, right? Going back to this. Uh-oh, our opponents are winning. What do? We sabotage. And so they created black codes, which were used to subjugate black people, right, in America legally, so they could legally subjugate black people. And so basically, this was a response, this was backlash. We see it right now. When people are doing really well, right now, when black women are doing really well, uh-oh, our opponents are doing well, we gotta sabotage. Fire 60,000, 600,000 of them from the workforce. Don't give them jobs, don't starve them, right? It's a tale as old as time, is what I'm trying to say. It's not a new tactic. It's not a new tactic. And so they saw that black businesses were thriving, black people were making money, they became a growing threat to the establishment. And so um, lynching was one of the ways that they took backlash, right? Lynching was one of the ways that they took out their jealousy, because this is essentially jealousy. I'm jealous that you're doing well. It's actually envy. Envy is I don't want you to have this thing. Not only am I jealous of you, I'm envious, and so I'm going to take that away from you, right? And so the jealousy, the envy, the hatred, the racism, the vitriol, the ugh, you're beneath us, but why are you doing better than us? It translated as lynching, which we still see today, right? And so what they would start to do was to kidnap, in some case, black men, take them, drag them. Sometimes they would drag them from vehicles, and they would hang them from trees. And so that's what happened to these three men. Often it was just a retaliation. Like it wasn't even, they would lie. What happened is then white people would lie and say, oh, it was because these men were raping white women, or they were looking at this white girl, or and so Ida B. Wells started to do research, right? Let me see. They lied and said that freedom from slavery, this is what they said to justify lynching. Freedom from slavery had regressed blacks, right? Oh my God, Japtomania. These people got free and now they've lost their minds. They think they're one of us. How dare them? Lunatics. And so, once they got free, they said that, oh well, then these black people are now they're closer to their African kin. At first, they were distancing themselves from the Africans. We made them more civilized, and now that we have freed them from slavery, they have regressed back to their African ways, right? The primitive criminal ways, the raping white women, and so they deserve to be hanged, right? There was this moral panic. Um, this was this and apparently this is true for all black men, right? Whether you were a preacher, whether you were a teacher, whether you had graduated from college, whether you were poor, whether you were a politician, it was just all black men were rapists. And so lynching was justified, right? Lynching was justified. They raped a white woman. We are justified. Um, and so they were all lumped. The new Negro crime, all black men were seen as rapists. I already said that. Um, and so basically, once Moss and his friends were lynched, they did research and realized that they weren't actually guilty of any crimes. They weren't guilty of any crimes at all, right? And she knew this. And Ida understood that lynching was a way to get rid of black wealth and property, and to keep the black race terrorized. So she started to investigate every lynching she could. She investigated over 728 in total for over the last decade, and she found that only a third of them were accused of rape. Just a third of them, right? Much less, they were not guilty. And the majority of those who were lynched by killing was just prejudice. It was just prejudice. Oh, this person made a threat to this white person. This person looked at them wrong. Incendiarism, right? Um, they were they were having an interracial relationship. He was dating this white woman. And so stuff like that, right? He looked at me wrong. He talked back to me. Those were usually what was happening. That's usually what was people were being lynched for. How dare you even look at me? And so that was what she was known for. She did a lot of research on um, folks that were lynched, and she found that even women and girls were lynched. Kids as young as 13 were being lynched as well too. She uncovered interracial relationships as well, where black men were killed for accepting white women's favors. Sometimes a white woman would be like, "Do this with me," and if the black man said no, then the woman would lie and say he raped me, and then he would be lynched. The black man would be lynched. And so even just rejecting sexual advances from white women sometimes got black men raped, not raped, lynched. Although I would consider it a form of violation, right? I did not consent to this. And so Ida continued to do this research, and she wrote her editorial was published. It was once it was came out, the backlash was swift. Thankfully, she wasn't in Tennessee when her editorial came out. She was said to be in New York, I believe. Um, She was traveling for work, and as soon as it came out, her office was looted and burned to the ground. Her coworkers were run out of town by mobs. It was just really, really swift backlash. Um, there were threats that she would be hanged if she returned. So she went to Philly and New York. So she wasn't in Tennessee at the time. So basically, on June 5th, 1892, the New York Age published an article on its front page, and it was the first inside story of Negro lynching. It was huge. In 1892, Black women came to her defense, to help fundraise money for her book. She wanted to publish it more, and so Black women came together. They had a fundraiser. They honored her, and she called it Southern Horror Lynch Law in all its phases. And so, like I said, 250 Black women came together. They honored her. They gave her the pen name Iola, I believe. Iola's Southern Field. It was a hit. Um, it sh- it was a hit. Like she really was that girl. Ida B. Wells was really that girl. She really was that writer. And so yeah, basically that's what she was known for. And she basically reminded people that, like, isn't it ironic that you're blaming black men for lynching people when white men have always, not lynching, for raping people when black women and girls have been raped since they were brought into America, right? So she would call out a lot of the hypocrisy, which even today, hypocrisy is lost on people, right? People accuse people of doing things that they themselves have done forever. What's that quote? Every accusation is a confession, right? And so basically, that's what she said. You guys are accusing black men of raping people, but it's actually your men that have been raping us and continue to rape us, including our young girls. And so, yeah, that's what she did. She wrote and challenged a lot of these stereotypes of black people. She exposed lynching. She did this research, um, and she gave a way for others to continue anti-lynching work. Right. So I'm gonna end it here. I'm gonna do another one on slavery because the next chapter goes into slavery a little bit, which I'm thinking about whether to do it or not, because I know sometimes that could be triggering for some folks and people don't want to hear about slavery and they say we're always talking about slavery. So I have the notes here. I'm going to see if I think I do want to share just because I'm sharing from Paula Giddings' books, right? So that's a little bit about Ida B. Wells. She did anti-lynching work. She exposed the establishment for its hypocrisy. She fought back in her writing. She organized. There's also the Great Migration. Ida B. Wells was also known for the Great Migration to be like, we got to get out of the South. And that's where a lot of folks started to go to Chicago and the Northwest and stuff. So this is 23 minutes. I'm going to end it here. Like I said, I will be back to do some more recordings on other days. So, yeah, thinking about our Palestinian kin today. And until next time, in solidarity.